Hello, Stand Up Michigan friends and followers. It's great to be with you again. We are coming at you live from our YouTube channel today. And there has been a lot of shakeup, as you all know, with our Facebook pages and groups and all of that. This has been a crazy, crazy week on many different levels. But we are really excited to be with you again today. And I just wanted to make some introductions and obviously let you know that we are here with our second interview. We're calling this our roundtable with our representatives discussion. So you can see that I have Ron Armstrong here, co-founder of Stand Up Michigan. Ron, you want to say hi?
Hi, everybody. Great to be with you. Great to be back with you. It's been a busy few days, and I swear sometimes people say, why haven't we heard from you? And it's been like 72 hours, but it's been a crazy 72 hours.
Yeah, that's for sure. And then we have, as you know, from our last interview, Representative Steve Johnson. We have Representative Luke Meerman as well. Luke was with us in our first interview. So thank you both for being willing to come back. After the tough questions, you're back again. And I really appreciate that. And then we have Ann Bolin with us. And I'm going to make just a couple brief introductory notes about our three House representatives. For those of you who did not see our first interview. And then I'm going to ask Ann, who is new to us with this interview, if she'll just maybe introduce herself and her background a little bit. So Steve Johnson is with us from the 72nd District. This is South Kent County and Allegan County, I believe. Correct, Steve?
Yes,
Steve,
it is.
All right. Steve was elected in 2016, so you are now going into your third term, correct?
Correct.
I believe. All right.
Yep.
Congratulations on your big win. And it was a little dicey. We talked the day before the election and it was a little dicey. So congratulations on your win. Well deserved. Steve is on the House Judicial Oversight and Tax Policy Committees. So Steve is an important guy right now working on that oversight committee. And we're gonna hear from him about what is going on with the election right now, where things stand, what's going on with the oversight committee. So it's great. I really appreciate you. I know you are really busy right now with dealing with all the fallout from the election, and you have been busy since last weekend. I know you guys had a special session on Saturday, so I really appreciate you jumping on here and being willing to share with the citizens of Michigan exactly what's going on and where things stand from the committee perspective. So thank you, Steve. All right, then we have Luke Meerman. Luke is with us again from the 88th District, which is Ottawa County. Luke was elected in 2018, so you are beginning your second term. Congratulations on your win. Thank you very much. And Luke is a fifth generation farmer, which is really cool because growing up in Ottawa County myself, being from Hudsonville, I know it's a very rural community, lots of farmers, a lot of people out there in the state of Michigan that can relate with you coming from that farm industry and the agriculture industry. So congratulations on your win. And also, Luke is on a very important committee as well, sits on the House Ways and Means Committee. So thank you for your commitment there as well. And then Ann, I would like to introduce Ann Bolin from the 42nd District, which is Livingston County. And I did not see, when I was reviewing, I did not jot down when you were first elected to office. So if you could kind of fill us in on that in a minute. Ann is on the Appropriations Committee, again, a very important committee, and you have a long history, lots of subcommittees that you sit on. You can tell us about that within the Appropriations Committee. And Ann was the Brighton Township's longest serving clerk from 2003 to 2018. So Ann, as I was reading through your bio and your profile, you've got quite an interesting academic and a government background and history. So if you would, just tell us a little bit about yourself.
All right, thank you very much. And first, I'd just like to take a moment and say thank you to our veterans. Today is Veterans Day. Thank you, Steve Johnson, who served us. But for all those people, and particularly today as we talk about elections and how so many of our men and women have fought for us to have free and fair elections. So I think it's appropriate that we honor them. And as we move through the conversation, let's never forget them as well. But I am a freshman legislator. I just recently was returned to my second term. As you mentioned, I am a former clerk in Brighton Township. Election integrity was a priority of my platform in 2018 and again in 2020. And so I'm well versed in a lot of things that are happening right now in the sense. And I've been saying for months, I have a lot of concerns over our elections. And as if it wouldn't have been tricky enough being in a presidential year, but there are lots of things as we get into conversation, we talk a little bit more about that. But I'm the wife of a small business owner, mother of millennials, caregiver to elderly family members. And I grew up in the community. My kids, I didn't grow up here, but we raised our kids here, and it's a great community. And I wanted to go to Lansing to make sure that we could continue to have a solid community, safe, good schools, strong economy, and people just live their lives here in Livingston County. So that's what brought me to the table.
Well, thank you for that. You have quite a great family history, educational history, government history, serving at several different levels of government. So I think you are a great voice in Lansing, and I really appreciate you being willing to jump on with us today as part of this interview. I'm trying to avoid the word interview because that can sound a little bit like I'm grilling you all, but I might just a little. I might grill you just a little because I'll be honest with you. The people in Michigan are coming to us for answers. And all we can do, we don't want to be your mouthpiece. We don't want to be your voice. We don't want to speak for you. All we can do is use our platform to provide you with an opportunity to speak for yourselves and to answer their questions, right? They're your constituents. And so we are very honored to have you with us and are very pleased that you're willing to tackle some of the hard subjects and the hard topics and then, celebrate with us some of the wins and share with us from your perspectives what you're seeing and hearing. As we get started in moving through some of these topics and conversations, I will share with our citizen viewer base that there are a lot of things that go on behind the scenes that we, as citizens, not being in an elected official position, do not see and we do not understand. I know because I have had close friends who have been House representatives, who have been in the legislature, and I have learned some things that I never would have known had I not been close friends with some of these people about how things work. And so I think it's very beneficial to give you guys the opportunity to explain some of this and what the environment is like and what you deal with as you introduce bills or as you move through legislation and legislative processes, trying to balance things like what the polls are saying versus what the people are saying. And so these are all things that I think are very important for us to talk about and to tackle head on. So that being said, I want to get into, first of all, the very first thing that we need to do, and that's to celebrate our wins. You guys just had a huge win in the House. We all, as citizens, have had a huge win, right? We held the House. And I was talking to Steve and Luke, and it was the Friday night right before the election. And we were all kind of biting our nails, feeling like we're losing our base. Oh my gosh, what's going to happen? Nobody really knew. It was, kind of a fragile, precarious situation going into election day. And we had you guys on the day before the election to try to generate some more votes and get some more voters out there, right? But we did it. You guys successfully held the House. We in Michigan held the House. I want to talk about some of these successes and I want to hear from you. I want to congratulate all of you, but I want to hear from you guys what you're seeing and what you're hearing inside the House now that we have, another 2-year term with a conservative, freedom-loving House constituency. I really want to hear from you guys what your thoughts are on this.
Yeah, well, I'm going to start off, Luke, if you don't mind here. So first off, thanks for doing this. And, a week ago was the first day after the election. And I think, we had a very tough campaign season. We were kind of thinking once we got to the election, it would all be done. We'd move on. And this past week has been pretty crazy. But I think it's important to step back for a moment and think about what things looked like going into the election. We were told by all the pundits, all the polls, all the media, Republicans did not have a chance. The question wasn't whether or not Trump could win. It was whether you can lose by 10 points or 20 points in Michigan. And that's what they were saying. It wasn't whether the House Republicans can maintain majority. It was how much are they going to lose it by. And we proved the polls wrong. I mean, we're right now, the numbers have Trump just barely losing, but they were saying he was going to lose by double digits. So I think it is pretty important to look at that and to see, we did keep the House majority. And when you look at the games that the Secretary of State's office is playing regarding the repeal of the 1945 law, where they're trying to delay, their whole goal there was to delay that till next term, and they're hoping they'd have a Democrat House, and so they could stop the repeal of the 1945 law. And that's very crucial. And I know the courts have ruled with us, but unfortunately, last Tuesday, the Democrats did take over majority of the Michigan Supreme Court. So that very strong ruling in our favor a couple months ago that overturned the 1945 law is now in jeopardy. And so it makes it just that much more important that we do repeal the 1945 law. We don't leave it up to these judges to decide. Let's just get it off there. And now they know they can't delay it. They know we have the signatures. The question isn't whether it's going to be repealed, it's whether it's going to be repealed in December or January at this point. So that's just phenomenal. Very, very big victory. And I know Luke had a few words, so I'll kick it off to him.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to start off by saying thank you to everybody listening out there. This is our Michigan. This is our republic, and it's all of us together. And I think it's very important for us representatives and for you that don't have to sit in representative seats to understand that these seats are given by the districts to representatives for 2 years. It's important to remember that it's not Luke Bierman's district, it's the 88th district, which was given to him to sit in for 2 years. And then after those 2 years are up, that district decide who else wants to sit there or who they want to sit there. So just to remember, this is driven by the people. These elections are driven by the people. And I think it's a beautiful thing. I love a republic. I love freedom and liberty. And it's amazing to watch kids when they come to the Lansing Capitol.
Luke, I'm gonna jump in here because we're having a hard time hearing you. You're cutting in and out. It sounds like maybe an internet connection or internet signal might be weak.
Okay.
I want to hear what you have to say, so I just want to jump in and see if maybe you can move or.
Let me jump on my phone, and then Ann Bolin is texting me saying she's trying to get in too.
Okay, that I can hear you a little bit better now, but that would be great.
Ann will probably be back in the waiting room. There she is. Ann's back. Okay.
There we go. Okay, we have you back. And Luke is going to try to jump on his phone so that he can say that all over again because I think we have a spotty internet connection, which, this is the problem with these types of meetings, that it's always the technology, right? And so we just have to be patient and deal with it the best we can.
Well, while he's doing that, maybe we could have Ann, again, just talk a little bit quickly about the election results and the victories that we did have last week, Tuesday, in regards to the House. And we just kind of had everybody chime in on that, but you missed that part.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. We did have some big wins. I mean, not only did we maintain majority in a climate that nobody ever expected, but we took over 2 seats of incumbents. And I think that speaks volumes to the message that the House Republicans have. And I also just think by the work effort and how we stood together. This has been a challenging year. It has been a challenging year as a candidate, as a representative, just in our own lives, just like everybody else, everything that's going on. We're real people too. So I am really proud of our work that we did to stay together, and we are united. We came together in our leadership elections, and everybody is ready to move forward. We did this in really unprecedented turnouts for an election. So we were able to, many of us still maintain. My district in Brighton is one that is starting to change. I was able to increase my percentage a little bit, and I was able to get more votes when you look at kind of the details than some of the candidates up the ticket from either party. So I think what that means is the people of Michigan, they want to know that their representatives are going to work for them, that they do work for them. We're the higher level of government that's closest to the people from the local level. So, we are a team. We have to be the voice. We're the voice for 90,000 people. So this is a great opportunity to hear from the people, those that we represent, and also to give us a way to convey back, kind of some of the, I don't want to say backroom tactics, but just some of the process that is always not explained. And people think, that's details, that's too much, I don't want to get in the weeds, but sometimes it's really important. And I would say when it comes to appropriations or elections, the process is extremely important for people to understand. And in particular, Michigan election law has many, many checks and balances. And I have said for years, and most importantly in this last year and a half or so, that those checks and balances are only as good as the person that is administering them. And I think that has been evident in some of the things that we have seen across the state this election cycle. And more importantly, I am happy to see that it rise to the top as a priority. And not because we had problems in Michigan, but because elections matter. And the fact that we can vote freely, secretly, independently, and securely in this country, we Americans have to wake up and understand how important it is. And that we have a responsibility to make sure that we are voting, we are participating.
Absolutely. You're absolutely correct. And I really appreciate hearing that that is a concern of yours and a priority of yours, and the involvement there, because that is the number one thing that we are hearing from the people across this state. We at Stand Up Michigan really have our finger on the pulse of what the people are feeling. And that is the number one concern, is what are you guys going to do about this election cycle? And we'll get into that in a minute. But I want to throw it back to Luke, because I want to hear Luke's thoughts. Let's try this again and see if maybe you're coming in a little clearer off your phone.
Just stop me if it's not coming through well. I appreciate the opportunity. I appreciate the opportunity to be with everybody there. The point I wanted to make was that these seats that we three representatives sit in are the seats of the people, meaning it's not Luke Meerman's 88th district. It's the 88th district who has asked Luke Meerman to sit in that seat. And I think it's a very important thing to remember for all of us, representatives and people. That's how our republic works. Our republic votes peoples in as representatives and send them to Lansing, send them to Washington. That's how our government works. That's what makes up a republic. It's not a democracy where everybody votes on everything. We ask for representatives to go look at these issues, look at them in depth, and work on them. And it's always enjoyable, and I appreciate talking to the kids as they come to Lansing and tell them to look down on the floor of the House and see that seat down there, that I happen to sit in at this time, is actually their seat. And they usually kind of look at me with some surprise and wonderment, but that's true. It's the people of the 88th district seat. They decide who sits there. And I think that's just incredibly important for us to remember all the way up and down the chain.
I agree. And that's why we saw such a huge, Luke, that sentiment right there that you echoed, that you understand that you work for the people, not the other way around. I think that's why we saw such huge gains and huge wins in the House, because there are good representatives like you three who understand that. You are just representing the voice of the people. And that's why when we get questions come back to us, I don't want to be so quick to answer for you. I want them to hear from you, because you are the one they elected to office. So if they have questions for you, you should be the one answering them. So this is a really important platform and a really important, I think, communications opportunity, because we have seen that the media, and we've heard from both Steve and Luke last time, that the media does not cover your press releases. They do not give you press time. They cover the governor and the Democrats all day long, but it's very difficult. As we have seen at Stand Up Michigan, the censorship and the narrative and the message is incredibly censored and controlled today. And that's why I think moving forward, as we do more of these types of roundtable type discussions, we can use our platform to get your message and your voice out there. So when the people have questions, we throw it back to you. You answer it. I don't want to be the one answering for you. It's your seat, right? It's their seat that you're sitting in. So that's a great thought, Luke. And that's exactly why we're doing this today. So can you guys tell me, talking about the wins in the House, what are the districts in which we saw wins and in which we saw losses? And what are your ideas about that? Is anybody willing to kind of go there and discuss that?
So I'll chime in. And when you look at the whole map of the state of Michigan and what the wins were in 16 with President Trump, what they were in 18 in the gubernatorial election, and then moving in, we had some term limited seats. The district changed. We all know that President Trump has been a different kind of president. And so maybe what the appetite was in 2016 for the middle of the masses, if you wasn't there, whatever reason. All right. So we anticipated that we might lose some of those third term seats. But what we didn't realize is that there was an opportunity that people want their representatives working for them. That's who we work for. We work for you. You don't work for us. And it was extremely evident in some of our candidate races. In particular, the candidate Timmy Beeson, who won up in the Bay City area. This is working class America in Michigan, right in that area, and strong Catholic area. We had a rep that was endorsed by the Right to Life on the other side of the aisle, and then decided he didn't want that endorsement anymore. That doesn't sit well with the people, because that clearly appears as though, wait a minute, is that a fundamental principle of yours, or are you just playing to a district or to a win? And I'm going to jump out on a limb. I'm going to speak on behalf of my two colleagues here, and I think they are very principled men. And that is not something that you would see out of either one of them or myself. We have those issues that we're steadfast on. We make it known to the people and let the people decide whether or not we're the right person for the job. But I think that that had a lot to do with it, knowing the district, what the pulse of the people was, and then having strong candidates, people willing to step up.
I think the one
Yeah,
thing
thank
I think
you.
the one thing that we're seeing, and again, we've got a good number of people watching live and commenting here, and as you all know, and I know Tammy's going to get into some of the comments that have been made by our Speaker of the House and others, and I'll let her talk about those. But there is an extreme frustration right now because they believe that they won this election. They believe that Trump won this election. They believe when they watched the polling and they watched the lines around these polling centers throughout Michigan, they are confident that those numbers were in such volume. They weren't voting for a Republican or a Democrat. They were voting for freedom. I think it is clear that a lot of them don't associate or align specifically with a party, but they do align with the American way of life and preserving that way of life. That was the underestimation of the polling, that even the House and the Senate leadership and the staff and the people around you all were hearing and spreading. She's got 62% popularity rate. That's crap. She might have that popularity rate with a straight Democratic people if they ask Democrats specifically. I don't believe that's necessarily so either, because of the people who voted who maybe didn't admit what they were doing. But you saw hundreds of thousands, if not over 1 million, new voters who came out for the first time to participate in a process. And now they feel like that process is crooked. That's the way they feel. They looked at the numbers. They realized what it looked like on election night. And they do know that there is fraud. What the level of fraud is, I don't know that we know that's the case. Is it enough to change the results of an election? We don't know. But what we do know is it's very unlikely that Michigan is ever going to win a statewide election again if we do not change some of our voting requirements and do not allow a Secretary of State to come in and the COVID or no COVID, mail-in ballots, not double checking signatures, not allowing, based on the law, oversight of those ballots being opened, those envelopes being discarded. We know that, we've got a lot of conspiracies out there also. We know that, whether it's a Sharpies, there's so many stories on social media. Get off social media. That isn't reality. We understand, and the people have to understand. What I'm saying is we are rising up together in numbers like this state will have never seen before. We are coming to Lansing to let everyone know this is what we voted for. And 72 out of 83 counties voted for Trump. 72 out of 83. The majority of Michigan, the majority of every county voted in favor of freedom. They voted in favor of independence, individual rights and freedoms. And it is really important that the leadership that you've just elected and the decisions we make not to go along with this governor at every single turn that we can is so vital to represent these people. You cannot go back to Lansing and say, we all need to get along, we have to work together. We know that in some ways you do, but you hold the power. And if they had reclaimed the House, they would have shot down this law. They would have gone back to the Supreme Court and having all of our signatures not verified. They would have done everything that she can to retain her power. And so would the people and the media around her. Do not fall for we want to work together. They only want to work together because they know that the two of you in the House and the Senate absolutely control the narrative. And they also know that if it wasn't for fraud, it probably would be more like 76 or 78 counties that would have voted for Trump. And so it is important, and as we go through what the reps have said, that you make sure that you stay in contact with the pulse of the people who support you, because this army will do anything to defend those individual rights and freedoms, and we cannot allow you to make actions or create laws or legislation that is going to step on those individual rights and freedoms. And I'm speaking for the people, and I'm speaking for myself personally, but I want to throw that out there because it is so vital that their voices be heard. They feel like they do not have a voice.
So I just want to respond to that in part. First of all, I want to say thank you. There is nothing more important. And I can tell you, I came to Lansing seeing that elections had to be a priority. We have a Secretary of State that has an agenda. And it has been very clear over the last 2 years with the association with some of these left-leaning groups, settling some of the lawsuits, instead of having them run their course and having them settled by way of law and legislation, which is the legislature's responsibility. And we had, this is the first election. A presidential election is a different election anyways, all right? It's a presidential year. This was the first election that we had no reason AV. We had that coupled with COVID and the Secretary of State that was doing some of the local clerk's job. And she was creating some confusion for our voters, the people that we all work for. Now, I certainly believe there are many things that we can work together on, but when there are differences, we need to shout from the rooftop that we have some differences, all right? We have some protections in our Michigan election law that we should never, ever give up, and that includes an absent voter application. There is a strong desire by our Secretary of State and Secretaries of State across the nation to make it convenient for people. Just mail out the ballots. Why do you need an application? We need to keep our application and we need to require an original signature. Now, we have Michigan election law and then we have best practices. And what we have found in this cycle is so many things are in best practices or a training manual that, in my opinion, we need to put in statute to make sure that voters have confidence, candidates have confidence. And while we all want to use this word transparency, what we need to be fighting for is accountability. For those people that are not following Michigan election law, they need to be held accountable. And that's where I think we are at right now in this election. And we always have to view things as an opportunity. If something comes out of it, that has got to be our focus and our concentration. We have that commitment with the Senate Majority Leader and the Speaker of the House, and that is they have already called the oversight committees together to do some investigation. I have spoken with Speaker Wentworth. Election integrity is going to be a priority of his moving into the next term. And that doesn't mean that we can wait till tomorrow or next month or next session for some of this to happen. We need to make sure that we are doing all that we can today to make sure that people have confidence in the system and the process. There are some things, and this will not bode well with the audience, I'm sure. We cannot go back, all right? They're in, there's no way to track because we hold the secrecy of a ballot to be very, very important in this state. And so some of the separation that happens in processing the ballots is gone. But I want to talk a little bit about some of the key things, if I can, that I am hearing from people or people have a lot of questions about. One is, why in the world were those windows taped up and people were not able to see into the TCF Center? And I will tell you, as a former clerk, the absent voter counting boards are to be sequestered. They are to be blinded from the outside to ensure that we have that secrecy. Those windows should have been covered from the beginning, not when there was an apparent desire to keep people out. Secondly, the late arrival of the ballots in the middle of the night. Now, I am not saying this is the case for 100% of these ballots, but I'm going to refer to the TCF Center and those communities that pre-process ballots. And this was the first election that we had pre-processing, and that was adopted by the legislature, signed by the governor. And because of the exaggerated turnout, we were expecting an increased number of absent voter ballots. This was a pilot project, if you will. We did put some chain of custody, some security measures in there. But in order for a clerk to be able to pre-process, you had to be a community with a population of over 25,000. Detroit fit that bill. All right, they fit that. And what the law said is, well, you have to prepare the ballots received up to a certain date, enter them into the electronic poll book. That's what we do in a clerk's office to receive applications and ballots in. And those were packaged for delivery by 10 a.m. on Monday. Now, in that batch of ballots were only the ballots that had been received through Friday. So you now have Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and ballots received by the clerk by 8 p.m. on election night that need to be processed. And so my experience as a clerk for 16 years, and certainly not the volume of the city of Detroit or city of Rochester Hills, some of these larger ones, but really the same amount of work goes. It's just a matter of volume. You do the same tasks. My experience has always been between 8 and 18% of the ballots come in that last 4 or 5 day period. So when I look at the numbers of what was brought in the middle of the night, I don't necessarily find that to be that unusual. Now, that doesn't mean that they're not, but there should be a way to be able to check the paper trail on those ballots coming in. So that's something that's been raised. The Sharpie markers, the ability to have challengers from each individual party. And I think we need to be advocating very hard for a change in the law, because right now it says in an absent voter counting board in a polling location. So the TCF Center was a polling location. You had to have one Republican and one Democrat. Okay. Well, we know with 134 counting boards, it's absurd to think that one R or one D could manage the traffic and the volume in there. So, we've learned that. Nobody has ever enforced that. It's always been a very congenial situation. People show their credentials, you come in, and the enforcement is one per precinct, one per counting board is typically how most of the clerks do it. So that's an area that we definitely have to fix. We need to find out why in the world were people turned away. We know we had people of both parties that volunteered, were trained, but not assigned. So these are the things we have to look forward to. I think they're going to require a change in statute, in my opinion. We can no longer go by best practice, if you will, because we can't rely on people. And I also understand that this is, there is a lot of work up front that's done in the clerk's office. We need to have an assurance that people can trust in that system. And this brings to light maybe that we need to have a different kind of element of oversight and availability in clerk's office. And I would say in particular on election day with these same day registrations, because there's no avenue for those to be challenged when they're being registered and given a ballot. So those are just kind of some of my thoughts, some of the, high up issues that I've gotten volumes of calls and emails and texts about that I just wanted to share with you from a clerk's perspective.
Thank you for that. So Tammy, why don't you move on into some of the issues that the people are really concerned with, so we can get those on the record here during this last 15 minutes or so of our call.
Yeah, so I do want to read to you, just to get on the record, what we are really hearing from the people is their concern over the messaging that's coming from some of the leadership is, yes, we're going to look into our elections. We want to maintain our elections for tomorrow, but people don't really care about tomorrow's election or the election in 2 years or the election in 4 years. They are very upset because there are so many discrepancies and there are so many affidavits that have been already signed and entered into these court cases from people who have witnessed so much election fraud, that they want to know what you're going to do about it right now. So let me read a couple things to you just to get this on record, and then I would like your responses. Okay, so first of all, Steve, I may direct this one if you would want to answer this first, just because you're on the oversight committee, but let me read a couple of things that have come out from the legislature and in particular from the House. Lee Chatfield, okay, Speaker of the House, Lee Chatfield, or former Speaker of the House, I should say now, Lee Chatfield, said, in looking into the voting and counting process in our state to give everyone confidence in the results, we are making sure that the next election runs more smoothly. Okay, that's a problem. You should see the comments that have come in off of that. It is not focused on what we're going to do to investigate the current fraud. It's we're going to make sure that our next election runs smoothly. That is not sitting well with people right now. Let me continue on. Representative Matt Hall. The subpoena action we took today demonstrates a commitment to getting our election procedures right for the future. Again, that is poor messaging, and that is not setting well with people. It will help to deliver a process that people can trust. I've gotten hundreds of calls and emails from people in Calhoun and Kalamazoo counties who say they have no faith in our election system based on what they have seen since Tuesday. Well, yeah, right? I mean, it's not just the ballots that were delivered in the middle of the night. It's the fact that these ballots all went for one candidate, which is not even statistically possible. I mean, there's so much wrong with this, but beyond just the number of ballots that were delivered. So people know this. This has all been documented, and these are the questions and the concerns coming out. Okay, let me keep going here just to get this on record. Other legislators have had similar discussions with residents in their communities. People have seen news reports of challengers being denied access to polling locations. They see windows being covered up to prevent people from watching ballots be examined and tabulated, and you already addressed that. Software errors have mistakenly awarded votes to a candidate. That's a big one. This software issue that's happening, what they just call glitches, right, around the country that have added votes for President Trump, or excuse me, for Biden that were initially voted for President Trump. These instances and images have led to controversy, confusion, and frustration, and it certainly is not a model of transparency. It's vitally important as we go forward in Michigan to ensure our election procedures are transparent, efficient, and trustworthy. When people go to the polls, this is a founding principle of our democracy. We must never stray from it, and we must work to protect it right now. People we represent have demanded answers, and we must work to provide them. I look forward to reviewing our election processes across Michigan through the joint efforts of these two committees so we can build a system that people can depend on. And so there is no mention of the investigation. That the messaging coming out from the House right now is really rubbing people the wrong way, and it's got people up in arms because there is no mention of the investigation into a very well organized corrupt system and party to clear up the allegations of fraud that have affected this election, the outcome of this election, and probably what is inarguably the most important election of our lifetime. It's not okay to just say, yeah, we've got some problems, we've got to look into it and move on, when if we don't really get to the bottom of this and thoroughly investigate what happened, because if we have to do a recount, we have to do a recount. We cannot just say, oh, well, it's time to move on. You know what? He lost, move on. And it's not that we're not accepting, it's not that the people are not accepting the results of an election. It's that there is so much going on here. There's just far more than one or two things. And we now have affidavits from thousands of people, right? And we know this is going through the court systems, but the people want to know, what are you going to do? What are you doing to ensure that the deep level of corruption is being truly and thoroughly investigated and exposed? They want to know.
And I think Steve would be a perfect one because he's on the oversight committee. I know I've talked to you several times, Steve, but I think it's important for you to at least know the avenues that you are taking. I think, again, as we mentioned in the past, I think what we always are missing from the legislature, and part of it is a media problem, is the fact that you don't have a spokesperson or a voice for the people that get out front. You always seem to be like, answer the question, but it's like trailing what everybody's waiting to hear. So I just feel like you just had some big meetings this last Saturday. I want to talk about the powers that you were given as the oversight committee. I do have confidence and understand that tomorrow the Senate's going to take up as well and vote on the fact that you'll have subpoena power. That's a very vital, important part. And I want to hear that because those are important things that you are working for to make sure that this election is looked into in every way it's possible to make sure that it was done properly.
All right. Yeah, happy to take this on. There's a lot to unpack there. So first and foremost, of one of those statements, the most troubling thing I heard was that referred to us as a democracy when we are a republic. That's a whole other discussion for another day, though. They're not entirely wrong in that we do need to be concerned for the next election. I hope people don't just think 2020 is the end all be all. Whatever comes out of this, we need to make sure that there is going to be changes for the next election so that way people know that every legal vote counted and only every legal vote counted. That being said, there does appear to be a number of issues with this past election. We've heard it on the ground and for the TCF Center. We've seen it with some number of issues, whether it's Antrim County, more recently in Muskegon County. There's one, I think, in St. Clair, in the Thumb area, there's some issues. So there's been a number of issues. Now, that doesn't mean that there's widespread fraud, but it means that we need to investigate. Because once you no longer trust your elections, the whole system collapses. And last Friday, communicated with the speaker, let him know that, not just myself, a number of other people said the legislature has to get involved. An investigation needs to be done. And on Saturday, we had a very rare committee hearing from the House Oversight and the Senate Oversight Committee. We met. I honestly can't remember any committee hearing on a Saturday, especially on a one-day notice like that. So very, very rare. The first step of that committee was subpoenaing some documents from the Secretary of State's office. Part of that was we want all communications regarding the mailing of absentee ballot applications that went out. I know earlier this summer, actually it's probably back to the springtime already now, when those went out, tons of people received them at their house. And a lot of people said they received them for people that were dead, their children that had moved out, they live in California now. They received applications for them, but never for themselves. There's a lot of questionable things going on there. So we're asking for a lot of documents specifically related to that, as well as some other things. And when you look at the amount of money that the Secretary of State spent on that versus maybe getting some better tabulating machines, some other things that actually could allow for the election to run smoother, allow us to get the numbers sooner. Instead, she decided to waste millions of dollars mailing these out. And clearly there's an agenda there. So that was the first step. The Oversight Committee, in order for us to subpoena certain individuals, we have to get that authority through the Senate and the House. So they have to pass a resolution that would then allow us to go ahead and pass a motion in committee for the subpoena. So we are still waiting on that. Last I heard, that is going to happen tomorrow. But I've heard some late things that maybe not everyone's going to be in tomorrow. So it could get delayed, unfortunately. I don't know the specific timing. To me, the sooner the better on that one. For my own ambitions here, what I would like to see to make sure that we can ensure that the election was done fairly, we can look into a lot of these things here. I think we really need to make sure that the Detroit City Clerk, the Wayne County Clerk, the Michigan Bureau of Elections Director, Antrim County Clerk, and I'd like to look into Muskegon. There's been some issues there. I think they need to come before the committee. We have some questions for them. We need to get to the bottom of this. Now, that doesn't mean that the election results are going to be overturned. We don't know what's going to happen, but we need to get to the bottom of this. And it was very interesting last Saturday when I was at that committee, the Democrats put up quite a fight, and they were very upset that we would even think of doing this. We're not calling to overturn the election. We're calling to get to the bottom of it. We're calling for the truth, the facts. If you believe your person won fair and square, why would you be worried about this? I have no problem with anyone doing an investigation into my election and seeing, what are the vote counts? Did I really win? I have no problem with that because I'm pretty confident I did. And if I didn't, I wouldn't want to be an illegitimate representative. So it is kind of troubling when you hear the number of Democrats and liberal organizations that are fighting this investigation tooth and nail. I've had journalists call me up. They know I'm in the committee. And when they go to interview me for their story, they're very hostile in a way I've never seen before. Like, well, you're a journalist. I thought journalists wanted investigations. They want to get to the truth. And yet they actually seem like they just want this thing to be over with. They don't want this stuff to be looked into. It makes me question whether they're actually a journalist or just an activist on a lot of things. I know a lot of the frustrations with people is that we don't get results right away. You watch TV, you can see a murder investigation get done in an hour. That's not how real life works. Investigations take time, and that's frustrating. It's incredibly frustrating. And I know that people are looking for a solution that is done yesterday. And that's not going to happen. And as far as the remarks of, we're just looking forward to the next election, I think that's regarding any legislative changes. At the end of the day, we are the legislative branch. Our job is to make laws. That is what we do. I don't know what legislative changes we could do that would affect this year's election. That is stuff that will go through the judicial branch. And the John James campaign has sued. They're doing a lawsuit through there. The Trump campaign is doing that. Those avenues are being approached right now. So that's where things stand. I don't know what happened. I hear the reports on the ground. I've seen a lot of affidavits that are very troubling. But you have to remember, just because someone says something, that is not proof of fraud. That's evidence. And that means it requires further investigation. And that is what our intent is to do.
Good. Well, I think that is, it's important. You guys need to get the subpoena power immediately. I think the Secretary of State is vital to that. There are a lot of question marks that need to be asked, I believe, and some things exposed there. I also think it would be good messaging wise. I probably have had on here 150 at least comments that have talked about audits or about random, basically checking votes. And it's not out of the realm if you get to a certain point with some fraud, or if you've had envelopes opened and there weren't signatures verified and they're mixed in together, you've contaminated the system. You contaminated the vote. We'll never know how many. And we say, oh, well, we'll just let that go. You broke the law. If you break the law in some areas within an election, then you either need to have a revote or you need to at least do some sort of auditing of these various areas and counties, specifically in Wayne County, to be able to begin to look at the irregularities and at what volume is that it takes place. And so all I think we need from the people need to hear from you now is that we are not going to declare Michigan's electors towards a winner until our investigation is complete. That's the key, is that if it takes you time, it takes you time. We have time. I understand December 14th and the dates, but courts can get involved and delay those things to make sure that we've done an investigation, a recount, an audit, a random audit. Those things can happen to be able to get deeper information as to what is done. And I'm afraid that people were so quick. I could name some names of some House members who literally have been elected to positions just this last Thursday that literally were ready to just hand it over immediately and just move on. And the people are absolutely livid that you would not fight for a president or for an individual who does not represent a party, but represents, again, the American way of life. And I think it's important for the people to hear that you're going to do the complete and thorough investigation to the level that every way you can, and still make sure that the way our electors are allowed to vote for a president representing our state and our people is done legally and properly. That's what they want to hear.
And a lot of these questions coming in for all of you, they are asking about recounts. Why are we not demanding
All
a
right,
recount?
so can I
Can anybody
I'll
take
be
that
happy
one?
to take that. So right now what we're going through, and this probably should have been explained, and this is where it is helpful to understand what the process is. A recount cannot occur until the election has been certified. So right now, across the state of Michigan, every county board of canvassers, which consists of 2 Republicans and 2 Democrats, are reviewing all of the precinct work. Okay. And they have to have their certification done by next Tuesday, 14 days. That's what the election calendar of the law states. And then it will move on up to the state. That is the trigger point when an aggrieved party can request a recount. Now, within that county canvas, there are certain things that can happen. And in my opinion, I hope these are happening at the county board of canvassers level. A county board of canvassers has the authority to call in a precinct and ask what went on in that precinct or that county board during the day. Why don't you match? Did you seal the records properly? What occurred? And look at the comments in the poll book. That's how we then have that assurance. We need the record of the election, if you will. And so that power and that authority lies with our county board of canvassers. And there are 83 of them across the state. They have to work on an aggressive time frame, but so be it. That's the process. And then it goes on to the state, which we also have a state board of canvassers. And what happened after the August primary election, in particular, things that we have affidavits for that went sour in the city of Detroit, the board of canvassers with the Secretary of State, required that this election have some oversight in the city of Detroit. And I think that that will be the work of Steve's committee. The legislature, the Secretary of State should be looking, what exactly did that oversight entail? What went well, what got changed, were people prepared, all those things. But right now, those county canvases are an extremely important part of the process. And I encourage people to attend their public meetings. There's documentation involved. And I also want to say, if you are ever a poll challenger, it is extremely important that those poll workers are making notation in the poll book of activities. If you're challenging something, you're questioning something, all that should be documented in the poll book. That's the record of election. And I will tell you, I witnessed firsthand how remiss some of that was. And we need to make sure and ensure that that happens. Now we have affidavits that people have sworn statements. So the Board of Canvassers, that gives them something to question and part of that process. Those county board of canvassers also have the ability to request precincts to do something we call retabulate. That's not a recount, but that's to call the precinct workers back in and to retabulate, run those through the tabulator again. So there are some things that are going on that aren't really necessarily put out in front of people. And it's just, there's so much to Michigan election law, and people just want the answer. They want to know that we are going to count every legal vote to determine who the winner was in this great state of Michigan. And whatever that takes, and whatever we're able to do, I'm committed to make sure that that happens myself.
Well, thank you, Ann. I appreciate that, because that's exactly what we want to hear. It's not that we're looking for an answer that we want to hear. We're looking for the answers of what you are doing. And what is the reality? How does the election law work? How does the oversight committee work? Where are they at in the process? What are the Michigan election laws? Because there's so much unknown and so many questions people just don't know. And so I really appreciate the thorough explanation. Having you on as a clerk in particular was really beneficial, to help people to understand all of this. When you put it all together, it's so complicated. And unless you have been a clerk, or if you have worked in positions like that, or close to the legislature, the political arena, you wouldn't know, you wouldn't understand. And there are a lot of very serious things that need investigating, and people want to know what you're doing about them. But then there are things that people don't understand as far as the process. So this has been really helpful, having you on from that perspective as well.
And I think we need to look at probably wrapping this up in the next 5 minutes or so to stay under an hour for people that are watching. We do have a great number of people that are watching on our YouTube Live.
So we've got one more big one.
Yep, yes, we do. And so let's get to that next big one so we can get something on the record here. And then we need to schedule to do another one of these within another week or so, just to make sure we can stay in touch with the people. So go ahead.
All right. Okay, so the last one, we're saving the best for last, because this is what everybody's hanging on right now. This is what we're hearing anyway. Besides the election, right? Governor Whitmer is doubling down on her mask mandates. She just came on, was it yesterday or 2 days ago, and claimed that she will implement a statewide mask law, working in conjunction and collaboration with the legislature. And boy, you better believe we started hearing it. As soon as she said that, our phones and texts and messages and Facebook, everything starts blowing up. People are livid about the loss of their freedoms, their personal health choices, their personal health liberties, the freedoms to choose for themselves whether or not to put on a mask to protect themselves from a virus. And this leads to the bigger issues that have already been floated out there in the legislature with the requirement of vaccinations or microchipping. You guys have already dealt with some of this stuff. And let me tell you, it was the people coming back to us screaming about the House bill that passed into the Senate with the microchipping. And I know that your intent was to prevent that. But what we found was there was a lot of legislators who did not thoroughly read that bill. They have their staff read things for them, which obviously is going to lead to nothing but problems. And it passed into the Senate, allowing microchipping of employees if a judge so warrants. So, I mean, we're hearing this from people. Now they want to know. We've gotten the Senate on record saying that their caucus will never support a statewide face mask law and mandate. And so people are hanging on right now. What is the House going to do? How are you guys going to rule? Just because we have a virus in town doesn't mean we're going to mandate that people do something, and they can't choose for themselves how to protect themselves and keep themselves healthy. And so they want to hear, and we want to know on record, would you, the three of you, And then what do you think about the House in general? Would you support face mask mandates as far as a law, a statewide law?
No way, no how in the world would I ever support a mask mandate. We're coming off the heels of the polling saying the governor was at 62% popularity. The mask mandate was incredibly popular. And those same polls said we were going to lose. They said Trump was going to lose by double digits. The polls were wrong then. They're still wrong now. And if we didn't do it before the election, when we were told that that was the popular thing to do, that's what people wanted us to do, why in the world would we do it after the election when the people voted us in? We didn't run on a mask mandate. The Democrats did, and they lost. They did not win the Michigan House. It would be an incredibly foolish decision for us to do that. Not only a foolish decision, but an unconstitutional decision for us to do. I'm adamantly supporting the lawsuit by Libertas and Resurrection Schools right now against DHHS with their mask mandate on schools. It's absolutely absurd. No way in the world would I support it, and I don't see any environment where the House of Reps here in Michigan would support it. But I'll let my other two colleagues chime in here.
Luke, we want to hear from you.
I would completely agree with that. Well said, Steve. I don't believe that's the case either, that there is any support in the House for that. If I could, I'll keep it that short. On the idea that asking for a recount, section 168.862, the only person that can ask for a recount on behalf of President Trump is President Trump. So I think we got to keep digging as we are. And another point I want to make, the only real way to continue to have integrity of elections is to have the ability of people to watch over the elections from each opposing party. And we've got issues with that too, as it's already been stated. But that's the real way you watch the hen house, is you have someone there that has a real interest at stake in making sure it is free and fair from each party or multiple parties. We do have someone likely going to jail from Southfield City Clerk, 6 counts charged against her from the 2018 election. So we've just got to keep on this. This is not something that we can ever let up on, because whenever we do, people are going to take advantage of it, and they're willing to break the law to get their party there. So we've got to keep working at it.
Absolutely. So thank you for that. Okay, Ann.
No, I do not in any way, shape, or form support a mask mandate. I do not support mandated vaccines. These are choices that families make based on their own situation, and we need to fight hard to make sure that that happens. And if that means taking our kids out of school, whatever we have to do, we have to fight hard. We should not be placed in that position. I will do everything I can to make sure nobody is placed in that position. But no, we should be able to go to church, go to restaurants, do as we see fit, and most certainly make those health choices for our family. On the election side of things, I want to say, I know the focus is on this. I know people are upset. I'm frustrated. I'm upset too. But please, people, we need to show up. It's not just in a gubernatorial election or a presidential election. We have small stealth elections for schools in May. Please stay tuned, participate in the process. And all elections matter. They really do. And the other thing is, I am absolutely committed, because I witnessed firsthand, this is the first time in 16 years, I've been on the other side where I was able to observe the process. Okay. And what I observed from people, poll workers, challengers, high-powered attorneys, is they are not familiar with election law, and they get this abbreviated training, if you will, and it's not the things that matter or that make a difference in the integrity of an election, and making sure that it is about only eligible votes are being counted, that it's recountable, things like that. So that is going to be a big focus of mine moving forward. And I'm sure my colleagues will support me in that endeavor, because we've shared many stories. But I did see that there is definitely a need to make sure that people are well equipped when they're going in those precincts to work, or our challengers, and even those that are fighting for us legally.
Well, thank you. I appreciate hearing from you all very much. And I just want to remind you, and this is what the people are saying, and they have said it, they've spoken it loud and clear. When you have 72 out of 83 counties that voted red, that sends a very strong message about the majority of this country and the citizens, or excuse me, the state, the citizens in this state, the message they are sending to their elected officials. They have voted for freedom, for personal and civil liberties. They are asking you to protect their constitutional and alienable rights that our constitutional protects, and you are there to protect as well. And so I appreciate the fact that you're willing to come on, answer some tough questions, go on record, making some statements about where you stand. And speaking, for the House in general, I would love to do another one of these soon. I think it's very important to be able to communicate what is going on, what some of your goals are. Maybe the next time we get together, we can talk about some of your goals moving into the next term. Obviously, one of them is going to be fixing the election problems. But before we close, Ron, do you have any final thoughts? And then I would like to hear just a final thought from each one of you.
Well, yes, and I think I'll do a follow-up interview or recording as well on all of this. But I want to let you know that I not only appreciate you coming on, but we are growing in numbers and we're growing in confidence. And I think the confidence comes from the fact that everyone witnessed what happened, even though everyone was told what they thought was going to happen in regards to backing our governor. And again, I believe it was just like what social media does. I think it stomped on it got into our heads. The more we covered our faces and stayed at home and shut our businesses and all the things that happened, the more we succumb to what we were listening to. And the fact is, it should be a warning to all of us that it's not what the people believe, that million people or whatever that came out that haven't voted in the past, they are here to capture their energy. And I believe they will be willing to serve in some capacity in their own communities. We are going to work at Stand Up Michigan to bring those people out, to identify people in each county, to be able to help train and recruit and put people into starting in school boards and then moving forward in their county commissions, city councils, and so on, because this has to start from the ground up, and we have to start tomorrow for the next election. And I'm not talking about election, but to control things in your county. We can revolutionize and change all of this, and it can happen quickly and easily. It does not have to wait 2 years for us to start accomplishing these things while we've got the energy. So we're going to be here. We're going to be watching. We want to know what's happening. We want to give you a platform and a voice to be able to be there, to be honest with and talk with the people. And we look forward to talking with you next time. And I'll let each of you say your last minutes of before we close out here.
I hope this is our generation's time that we understand how easily and fragile, how easily we can lose our liberties and freedoms. And I hope this is our generation's time that we understand and we appreciate it like never before, and that the involvement in our government at all different levels is at a new level, because that will keep the government answerable to the people the more we stay involved up and down the chain.
Absolutely. And we have been talking about that very thing at Stand Up Michigan. Like Ron said, we are going to start focusing on identifying candidates for school boards, city councils, all the individual city, township level positions, because that's really where politics happens. It starts at the local levels, and that's where we have lost it. We have given it away. And so we're going to start doing whatever we can to help put good people back, identify those people, train them, put them back in those positions to hold people accountable, to hold government accountable, so it doesn't run rampant and trot on our freedoms again. We've got to take back some lost ground, and then we've got to fight hard to keep it. We're always only one generation away from the loss of our freedoms. And Luke, you said it perfectly. We're watching that, and hopefully this is a huge wake-up call to us. So we will do our part in partnering with you, and I appreciate all of you. So, all right, closing thoughts from Ann, Steve.
I know that sometimes people don't always like the answers. I see in the comments, I'm just feeling the love. But here's the important thing. You're going to get the truth. And if we don't know what our differences are, we cannot move forward and find the common ground in where we stand, okay? We have people attacking your group, the House, conservative candidates. We need to band together. There are certainly, let's find the common ground. Let's fight hard for those. We can get this across the finish line. All right, the media and the other side is trying to deafen us right now in many different ways. And that's why we have to shoot from the rooftops. The laws are the laws right now, the process. We need to make it go through. We need to be present where we can, county board of canvassers, state board of canvassers, making sure you know your reps. That type of thing is important. But moving forward, we cannot relent. This is, I thought in 2008, I thought in 2018, like we're fighting for our lives. But honestly, a government that shut us down, kept us away from our families on Easter, telling us not to go to church. It's staggering that people are falling in line. We can't let it happen.
Yeah, I'll just close with this. When you choose fear over freedom, you are falling in the side against America. When our founding fathers decided to fight a war against the most powerful military that they had ever seen, they put their lives at risk. Everyone has said you can't win, and they did. Our country is built on taking risks, taking chances, because they knew that the freedom was worth it. You think about the westward expansion across this country. Our country has so many great stories, and there is something unique about America. There is something unique about this country with regards to freedom, liberty, and the fact that we're willing to take a chance. It's not about safety at all costs. No, it's about living your life. It's about actually living your life with abundance, without fear. And that's what I'm going to continue to go for, continue to choose freedom. And I hope that when I go around, I see people wearing masks, man, I hope that's not the future of our country. I hope the future of our country is people saying, I'm not going to live in fear. I'm going to live an abundant life in freedom. Thank you guys for doing this.
That's not the future of our country.
Well said. Thank you. Thank you very much, all of you. I think that was perfectly well said. And that's it. That's where the majority of the people in this state are right now, that they recognize there are viruses. There's always going to be viruses. There's thousands of them, probably hundreds of thousands of them. But we don't worry, about leaving our house because there might be a virus or a bacteria or something that might get us. We cannot eliminate all risk from our lives. So we live life to the fullest. Yes, we take precautions and we take care of ourselves and our families. But that's exactly what our people, our followers wanted to hear from you today. And so that really resonates with our audience. So spread the word among the other reps in the House that we're going to be calling and we're going to be knocking on their door, because we want to continue these roundtable interview discussion type conversations to get the message out to the people and give you guys a platform to communicate with them. So you guys are great. We appreciate you very much. We're very happy that you were reelected, that you're going to be continuing on for another term. And we will watch closely for new bills, new legislation coming forward, and have you on to talk about those things even proactively. I think would be very helpful.
We appreciate you all so much. And thanks everybody for watching, and we'll be in touch with you soon. Share this from your YouTube onto your own personal platforms so that you can share. And we're asking everyone to go to the website, sign up for our email, standupmichigan.com. You'll see, put your email in there, and therefore you will get this link to this video where you can email copies or even text a link to it to other friends, because we can't use, we're not going to be using Facebook anymore, period. It's going to be a platform that can be shared from your people, but Stand Up Michigan is going solo so we can be fair and honest, and we don't have to worry about what it is we say. You're just going to have to come where you can hear the news. It's like changing from CNN to Fox and changing from Fox to Newsmax. You have to go to where the information's at. It's at standupmichigan.com, and we're asking you to go there and subscribe to the email so that you'll get the truthful information going forward. So we appreciate you all your time, and we hope you'll come back and join us again soon.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a great afternoon.
Thank you.